Here we go, 2019. More radios. Oh, Max. Hello, Max. About 10 miles along the coast from me. Welcome to you. I did say hello last week, but just thought I'd say that again because it was at the end of last week's video. So Max is the only new member at the moment. Welcome to you. This is Tim's radio. Hello, Tim. It's an Ultra T401. And as Tim said, it does work. It makes noises. Interesting thing. IF amplifier valve. See my lead. I've had to earth the outer, the metallic paint on it, which acts as a screen. Someone stuffed a bit of metal in there, which isn't working, not making contact. So I've used a croc clip lead. And the radio does work, so little repair job on the back, which is nice and neat. Tim's cleaned it all up as usual. So the next thing I'm going to do is get it out of the cabinet and have a look and see exactly what's what. It's got a mains transformer, which is nice. I don't know what these valves are. Oh dear, Pen 45DD. Yeah, they're, apart from that IF amp, I'm hoping the valves are okay because they're not easy to get. I don't have these very old ones. Oh, my earth wires come off. That's it.
Secured depth.
It works.
It's more difficult to get depth.
So let's turn it off a minute. And that's on 178 volts on the mains. I keep that down low. External aerial, of course. So yes, it's working. It'll be capacitors, sort that valve out, blah blah blah. There's my new camera, and then this is, I don't know if this is going to work, 5 meters of extension USB lead. I don't know if this is, because I don't think cameras always like all these extension leads. Anyway, you leave me to play around with this. Got a little tripod for it. So the idea is, not just so I can have 2 different camera angles looking at me. That's boring. No one wants to look at me. But perhaps to look at radios. Let's get that straight. Close-ups on radios. I usually use, this for close-up chassis work. You can get that down there and just press, record video on that. But I think this is a better camera. Anyway, we shall see. First of all, does it like all this long lead? I don't know, we'll find out. Of course, also it would be useful for the blackboard, because very often the blackboard is quite a way, you want it really filling the screen. But let's see if I can switch cameras. There's that piece of metal someone stuffed in. That's between the valve and this metal here. But this is painted, so that's not earthing properly. There's my earth lead to stop it whistling. So yeah, this camera perhaps will be better, for when the blackboard's here. We shall have to see. Of course, the lighting's a bit different with this, but anyway, that's the idea. Does that work? Yes, that works. That's the idea. Right, enough of that before we all get bored. I'm going to take the chassis out of Tim's radio. Just out of interest, I've looked up this IF amplifier valve. It's VP41, Victor Papa 41. No equivalent. 4-volt heaters, these valves. So that valve was first introduced, apparently, first made in 1938. So they are old type valves. I've just downloaded and paid for, choking, now I had to spend money, the service manual for the Ultra T401. I just had to pay for it anyway. It's on the members area now, and it's free for you all to have a look at. We don't want that piece of metal. So yeah, I've just added that. Look under Ultra and you'll find T401. So that's a VP41. I'm going to have someone's taped around the base. I'm going to have to take it out and do a proper earthing job on the, the metallic paint there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the valve apart from that. So that'll be fairly straightforward. Just bits of tape and bits of metal poked in there won't do the job properly. So we now have the service manual for this. Well, there's the chassis out of the cabinet. Quite nice. It all comes out in one piece. Speaker, dial, plate, everything. Right, let's have a little look round. Nice mains transformer there. Underneath we've got underneath. I don't know if this is that light enough. Perhaps I'll need some light on it. There's the smoothing capacitor. 1624. October 46, there are October 1946. Someone's bodged in a extra bit of smoothing there. I'll replace that. Wax capacitors, I don't know whether you can see, hidden down, there's one there. Capacitor in there. Yeah, so a nice little radio. Fairly easy to work on. Yeah. So what I shall start by doing is, I think I'll sort that valve out first. Get the shield earthing properly. The IF hasn't been twiddled, has it? No. We don't want people twiddling IF transformers. I don't know whether you can see this. This is paper stuck on here, and it's got damp at some little rust spots like they do. So there's nothing to do with that. The thing to do with that is leave it. Don't touch it. It's very clear. It's all right. I don't know how it is on this camera, but that's pretty good. So not even going to try and get any dust off there. Just leave that alone. I've replaced some capacitors. Look at these old things. Look at that old electric condenser. Look at that. These are really old. 100 microfarads, 6 volts DC. There we are. I've replaced those. The radio's working very well.
So I've just
Having replaced those, I turned it on. It didn't work. I thought, here we go. Here we go. Some of the wiring, some of the joints, I don't know what it was. Perhaps, I suppose, they didn't have these soldering irons in the early days. Some of the soldering leaves a lot to be desired. They probably didn't have the quality solder that we had later on. And wires just fall off. What it was, a wire had fallen off the main switch. So the thing wasn't getting any mains. But it's
Junction 29 Lostock Hall and Junction 30 the M61.
working nicely now.
On the hard shoulder.
So I've got a few more capacitors to replace. The hum's gone now, by the way. There's someone put a radio spares 4 microfarad capacitor. I'll chuck those out. So the hum's gone now, which is good. Before I forget, hello Jerry, if you're watching. Right, I did say that I wouldn't be mentioning the B word too much this year, and Jerry messaged me, and we got a small wager. He's bet me a £5 that I won't be able to refrain from mentioning the B word. What was it, till the first week in February? So I'm not. Dear me, I don't know. Whatever next. Yeah, so you're on, Jerry. No B word. Am I allowed to say the B word though? I mean, not the word itself, but the letter B. So okay, we shall see what happens there. Yes, I was looking up valves last night for this. They are available, but they tend to be very expensive. I'm not taking on, I mean, apart from people like Tim and local members, I'm not going to be taking on radios like this anymore. I decided that last year, in fact, because the valves are difficult to get hold of. They tend to be expensive. These aren't that easy to work on. I suppose I'm becoming lazy. For example, I've got to replace capacitors. They're buried right down in there. Wiring can be brittle and break off. Dry joints everywhere. They're not the easiest of radios to work on. I would rather get on with something which is, I suppose I'm being lazy. I'd rather carry on with something that's easier. I'd rather do, for example, a couple of DAC 90As or DAC 10s or whatever, or even the AC 41s, they're nice radios, 31s, than something like this, because they're easy to work on. My eyesight's not getting any better. I've got my thick glasses here. Anyway, that's all my excuses for just turning down the jobs that I don't like. And why not? Why not? That's my prerogative, isn't it? The valve, I forgot to mention, I got some ordinary wire, stripped the insulation off, wrapped it round, tightened it with a pair of pliers around the valve, okay, and soldered the twisted bit, then ran a wire to the chassis, and that's cured that problem. It's not worth spending money on a new valve when the valve's perfectly all right, apart from the screening isn't earthed. So that's solved that. That will now last the life of the valve. This is all finished now. Capacitor's replaced. Great expense to my hands. I cut myself, but it's part of the job. I can hear the dustman. Julie, you've got to be a bit careful if you work from home. There was a lady I read about in Brighton, worked from home. I don't know. I forget what she did. The dustman found a cardboard box, a small cardboard box, in her recycle bin, addressed to her business at home. And she was charged, what was it, £600 for putting, I suppose, business or industrial type stuff in a domestic dustbin. So I've got to be careful what I put in the dustbin, because they could say, right, you're running a business, apparently you have to pay for business stuff to be taken away or whatever, so you've got to be a bit careful. So I won't be singing Tim's radio in the dustbin. No, it's nice, Tim. It's all done, it's working well. Took a lot longer than I thought. They always do, these little radios. Even when they come in, they're working, you think, oh, that's fine, no problem. They seem to take a lot longer than some of the other radios. I don't know why. The small ones always take a lot longer. I just had, for example, intermittent fault on long wave. It seems okay now. Where are we? Long wave.
Some 35 years later, and my sister and I did our best.
It was all crackling and crackling.
It might be because
back to medium wave.
Blocked. He tried to enter Parliament, her place of work.
That's fine. So I'm going to leave that on test. Have a look at these photos. These are from Bill. Hello, Bill. I hope you're watching. Bush DAC 90A, the ivory, Bakelite ivory cabinet type. I won't talk through each photo, but I won't describe each photo. You can see what it is. You can see what sort of state the radio was in. The chassis, I mean, decades of dust. It really was in a bad way. Incredible, really. I suppose rather like Tim's radio here. It's all highly polished, all the aluminium and brass spindles. But yeah, you've done a really good job there, Bill. It's time consuming, because sometimes I'll have a customer say, I want it all highly polished inside, and I used to say, well, okay, it'll cost you more, obviously, because of the time. But now I just say, no, sorry, I'm not doing that. I don't have the time. It just gets silly, the amount of time it can take. Of course, if it's for your own radio, like this is Bill's own one, then that's fair enough. So yeah, excellent job there, Bill. That really, that's amazing. It's encouraging. It just shows you that almost, no matter what state the chassis is in, I suppose within reason, this is what you can do with it. It's truly amazing. So yeah, my hat off to you there, Bill. That's Tim's radio done, and I've put the back on it. That's asking for trouble. That'll go wrong in a minute.
There will be commentary.
Nice radio. Right. Jed said, hello, Jed. He said he's got a valve data book. Unfortunately, some of the pages at the front are missing. Been ripped out, fallen out, whatever. He said last week, I was talking about valve. You've got a missing valve in a radio. How do you find out which valve it is? Jed's been looking in his book, and he says, what is IC? Take an EL84. It says here, these glasses are, I don't know what's happening to my eyes. That's better. Pin 1, IC. Okay. Pin 6, IC. Pin 8, IC. I'll come to that in a minute. Pin 2, G1. That's grid 1. That's the control grid. Okay. G3 is the suppressor grid. G2 is the screen grid. That's pin 9. A is anode. Now K is cathode. Something to do with the Greeks. Any Greek people watching? I think K is to do with something to do with that. Instead of C, they put K for cathode. And very often, like the EL84, it'll say G3 and K is pin 3. The suppressor grid, grid 3, is normally tied to the cathode internally. H and H is pin 4 and 5, that's heaters. Okay, so what is IC? It's internal connection, Jed. That's what I was talking about last week. Internal connection. So although there's stuff that you look under the chassis, say we'll stick with the EL84, there won't be any connections on pin 1, 6 or 9, B9A valve. Sorry, not 9, 8. Don't connect anything to any of those pins because they're connected internally to parts of the valve. He also says, what is NC? I can't find a valve with NC. NC is no connection. Okay, so if you've got a, I can't see it. If it says NC on, say, pin 8 on a certain valve, there's no connection internally at all. That you can use, I don't myself, but you can use that as a tag to support a capacitor or resistor, you know, a point, something like that if you wanted to. I would rather use a separate bit of tag strip. I've got dirty doing Tim's radio, you see. Have to put these prices up. Can't afford the soap. Right, so that's what it is, Jed. Yeah, G1 is grid 1, that's always a control grid. G2 is the screen grid. G3 is the suppressor grid, which is normally connected to the cathode. It might be an idea if you get hold of a valve book and you know, have a look through, familiarise yourself with all the bits and pieces. In the front, somewhere in the front, and Jed's had his all ripped out, or they're missing, here we are, IC, internal connection, NC, no connection, NP, no pin, S, internal shield. So it's all written in the front. Yeah, find one of these little valve data book, quite useful. What's this one? 1965, 66. We used to get these free in the workshop, which was quite nice. This every year, you know, Mullard and other companies, Brimar, Mazda, yeah, we get a load of valve books turn up. So always used to keep them in the pocket. There we are. Has that explained that? There was something else, but I can't remember. Here we are. This is fun. Radio Rentals just come in. Chap's just come down from London. 2 big back screws, and when you take the back off, right? When you take the back off, the chassis comes out with it. How about, goodness me, it's in a state. Goodness me. Oh dear. That's in a bad way. Yes, so that's interesting. It's a Radio Rentals, well, it doesn't say. Not to be sold, the property of Radio Rentals Limited. There we are, not to be sold. So there's a thing. I don't know what he said to me when he brought it round. He said, there's the lead. He said, could you try it? And I said, no, I'm not plugging that in. I said, I have to put it, you know, get it in the workshop, test it properly. I said, I can't just plug it in here while you wait. I mean, it's got to be checked over properly. Look at the state of that under there. I've turned the light off. It needs a lot of work. I don't think he's going to have this done. I say that because he said, I don't want to spend much money on it, and I must have it back as soon as possible and all this business. You'll have it back when I'm finished with it and not before. And you will spend a lot of money on it. No, I don't know. It may just look worse than it is. I'll see what, should I plug it in? I don't know that I dare. It's got very old capacitors in it. I'll start it off on a low voltage and see what happens. Well, I've got it going, which is amazing. It's in a right state. Basically IF instability. EF39 valves had it. It's the IF amplifier. I've just lashed a couple of 0.1 capacitors across here and there for decoupling, just to get it going. This is just coming. DAT 90, that's just turned up. So I'm going to start getting busy again. I don't know about having a rest. I had 2 weeks off at Christmas. I shouldn't have done that because I don't want to go back to work now. Anyway, yeah. Got not much volume and stuff, but yeah, not bad. I'll show you around with a little camera. I'm not going to use my new camera for close-ups because it's not designed for that. The other one's better. So let's have a look under the chassis, just out of interest. Right, there's a lashed-in capacitor. Look at these three. Can you see those three there clearly? Hang on. Now these three, look, condenser. What's that? 20 years it says on it. Look, these are dry condensers or something, which are obviously want replacing. Oh dear me. Yeah, look at that. Happy days. This here is just a capacitor I've lashed in there. You can see the old waxes here. It's not a bad radio actually. There's another capacitor I've just put across that one just to stop all this instability, all the, you know, a lot of capacitors. There's there. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I can see 9. Just quickly look around. 10. Yeah, a lot of capacitors. But it's quite a nice radio actually. I don't know whether you can see that very clearly. All this is all the wave change switch and the coil pack here. All the trimmers. There's shortwave, long wave, medium wave, and gram positions on there. And this way, I'm not going to put the chassis the right way because I've got components hanging off underneath now. There's the tuning capacitor. Can you just see that? Oscillator mixer, IF1, IF amp, IF2. This will be the detector, AGC detector and preamp up spec for the output valve there. Quite a nice loudspeaker. Rectifier. That's probably a smoothing choke. It's not a bad radio actually. It needs a lot of work, well, as most of them do. I'm surprised that those capacitors, condensers in the cardboard boxes there haven't blown up. What am I on? I'm only 190 volts mains. I don't want to push my luck, blow up my face. I mean, normally, with a radio like this, you would replace all the capacitors before you do anything. You know, I've said all this before. You know, don't muck about trying to, you know, put capacitors in across the old ones to see if that makes any difference. I would just replace the whole lot. But it's an estimate. There's a lot of aeroplanes. Have you noticed that? A lot of aeroplanes. Earlier in the video, I nearly got drowned out by an aeroplane. So yes, it's just what the chap's going to say. I mean, the tuning. Luckily the chords are right because it's very tight, but it's a very complicated tuning drive there. I don't want to yeah, it all needs, that's another thing, before you start, you know, forcing it and turning it, because it'll snap the cord, just try turning a little bit, lubricate everything, get the dust off of course, little drop of oil on the capacitor bearings, the pulleys, only a little drop. You don't go flooding everything because then it'll all slip and won't work. So there we are. I've kind of checked it all over. Basically it's a clean up, clean the switches, controls, all the old wax capacitors, HT smoothing capacitors, get all those old paper things out of it in the cardboard boxes, and a bit of alignment, and hopefully job done. I've just sorted out the capacitor underneath so I can turn it the right way up. I think I'm going to leave it on for a little while, because if anything, you know, hopefully those capacitors won't explode. I've seen them explode before, especially electrolytics. Bang! Bits of silver, foil and muck everywhere. I think the speaker's okay. I had to fit a new, well not fit, my mobile phone battery went flat the other day, and I looked on eBay. You can get batteries for sort of 15 quid, and I found some instructions. You've got to take all the screen off. It says get a hairdryer and warm up the back of it so the battery kind of unglues from where, little Phillips screwdriver. I thought, no, I'm not doing that. Anyway, I found a chap. He comes out to your house or workshop or whatever, fits a proper genuine type battery, 45 quid. Sounds a lot, but I thought that wasn't bad actually. Took him half an hour. I watched him do it. Took him half an hour, so that's not bad. I mean, normally a call out charge alone is 45 quid, isn't it, or more. So pleased with that. Why am I telling you? I've no idea why I'm telling you that. It's not bad at all, actually. Yes, that is a nice radio. It's just, it looks bad, you know, really bad. It looked worse than it actually is. A friend of mine said the other day, he drinks too much, this friend of mine. He said, I'm going to do dry January. He said, but I don't think I can. So I'm doing it with him to support him. There's a few of us doing it with him. I don't drink much, you know, I don't drink in the week. I just have a couple of beers at the weekend. But I thought to support him, because he does drink too much. Listen to that work going on. There's always work going on around here. So yeah, I'm on dry January, plus I'm on a diet, so there's no beers at the weekend, no real ales. I always have a couple of bottles. No bread, no potatoes, no cheese sandwiches, no cake, no crisps. Goodness me. And I can't even say the B word now because of Jerry. I don't know what's left. I've just had a look. I've noticed there's no model number on the back, but on the dial glass it says 62. And there, 62. So I've looked it up. I've actually got not the service manual. I've got, it's in the members area. If you look under radio rentals, model 62. I think also covers 64 and 5 or something. There's a circuit diagram and some info, a few notes. So that's handy. So I've made a cup of tea and I think I'm going to call it a day. Yes. I'm getting now exactly what I wasn't going to do in 2019. Pi 19D, DAC 90A, Ultra T401, radio rentals, whatever I just said it was, 62, 4 radios on the bench. You know, my camera, it's a mess. I don't like it, it's a mess. I shall clear up ready for tomorrow. Well, I've tidied up a little bit. My tidying up normally makes things worse. Look at these photos. Chaps just asked me whether I could repair this. It's an Emerson Mickey Mouse radio. It's an American thing. Yeah, it's not something I want to get involved in. I don't sort of get involved with American radios. Plus, he said he doesn't want the cabinet done. Just wants to get the radio working for minimal amount of money. Well, I don't know. Look at that chassis. I'm not going to get involved in that. So I've said no. I keep away from the American radios anyway. Not that there's anything wrong with them. It's just that, you know, you've got to try and specialise in something. You can't just take on anything and everything. As you know, in the old days, I did tape recorders, radiograms, transistor radios, record players, you name it. I'd say, yep, get it to the workshop. I'll have a look. But not anymore. Right. So where are we now? The week's disappearing fast. Just this minute, I had a phone call from a lady. It's funny. Got a radio, can you have a look at it? Said, yep, okay, what make is it? And she said it's a Bush, his master's voice Echo. So I said, hang on, sorry, what make was it? She said, I'm looking on the top, there's a transfer and it says Bush, his master's voice Echo. So I said, well, hang on, that's 3 different manufacturers. They're all separate companies, you know, what's going on? And I said, what does it say on the back? It said, there's nothing on the back, just on the top where the transfer is. And I said, has this been written on by someone? Or oh no, it's original. She said, I'll read it out to you word for word. Bush, his master's voice, Echo, EKCO. So I said, well, send me a photo. Anyway, she's got no computer. She doesn't do mobile phones, computers and all that. Friend of her put her on to me. So I said, I'm sorry, it's not one I can help with. That she's in Scotland. Normally I would say, all right, you know, if it was a certain make, I'd say, well, post it to me. But I've no idea what would turn up. You know, it could be a sort of KB 1960s transistor radio. You just don't know. That's a good one. That a Bush, his master's voice Echo. Well, that's an interesting one. There's more rumbling now. Can you hear that? Anyway, this is interesting. I've got the go ahead. Look at these. I've got 3 of these. The old electrolytic condenser, is it? Not for resale. Radio Rentals Limited. 8 microfarad. Condenser specialist for over 20 years. There we are. So, it's quite amazing that. Not for resale. Peak volts 500, 8 microfarad. Anyway, I've taken all those out. I've taken what I can assume is a 1960s Bodge out. 33 at 450. And that's all I've done, just those.
Parents to get a better work life.
Good.
But first, we're going to talk to
Working
three
well.
women who've got different stories to tell.
So I think I'll end the video here. I think, as usual, a final thought before I finish. And the final thought is, as it's Friday, I heard something briefly on the radio, on this one actually. It's still working all right, by the way. I've still got all the caps to do. Do that next week. Right to repair, it's called. Look that up in Google or whatever. Right to repair. As in, you've got a right to repair something. In the old days, I used to replace the kettle. I had a kettle. The element would go to your local electrical shop before the internet and buy a kettle element, put it in. Toaster, one of the elements would go. You go and buy a set of four toaster elements, take the toaster to bits, fit the elements. Hair dryer, whatever. Casing comes apart in two halves. You can replace the element or switch or whatever. However, these days you're lucky if you can get the thing apart, let alone get spares for it. And the UK government, I think, from what I heard briefly, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're going to start pushing manufacturers now to make things repairable and supply spare parts for them. It's just reminded me, when I go down to the local tip, where there's a small appliance, it's like a big skip for small appliances because everything's separated these days. And come to think of it, I have looked in there, there's kettles, hair dryers, toasters. It's absolutely full of stuff, hair curling things and whatever. Something packs up, you throw it away and buy a new one. And of course, with all this plastic in the oceans and stuff all around the world that everyone's trying to do something about, why throw? I mean, look at a kettle. The body is plastic, the top, the handle, the base, it's all plastic. So it'll last you however long, not that long these days, and you chuck it up the tip. And of course, it's plastic. So, what the government, I think, I don't think they're legislating, but they're trying to get manufacturers, or are going to try to say, look, first of all, make it so that these things are repairable. You can get inside the damn thing, not all sealed up or got weird, idiot-proof screws and all that sort of thing. And also supply spare parts for a number of years, even after you've stopped producing that model. I mean, back in the old days, I remember years ago, we had a Hoover steam iron. I'm going back, 70s, Hoover steam iron. The element went. I went down a local electrical shop and you buy the sol plate, which with the element built in. You could buy the thermostat. I just went home, fitted it all together. The iron was perfect for many, many more years. Why throw it away? There we are. It's a throwaway world, and I think it's time that it was stopped. I mean, okay, with electronic stuff, you buy one of these modern sort of radios. There's no way into it. There's no screws on the back. You can't get into the thing, let alone repair it. But that's slightly different because that is high-tech electronics. I'm talking about everyday stuff: electric kettle, toaster, hairdryer, stuff like that every household has. I think you can get bits for washing machines, like pump, heating element, belts, gaskets, whatever, the rubber door boot around the front. I think you can get all those these days. But anyway, there we are, rant over. Thanks for watching as always. I shall see you on Monday when we will carry on with this. Bye-bye for now.